I just realised today I was in the gym working out, and I realised that it's been almost 20 years since I first started out facing my fears. I can't believe how quick the time's gone. I'm 39, I'll be 40 this year in September. And I was just thinking, wow, I was 20 years of age, and I was absolutely terrified. I suffered with awful social phobia, and I suffered with anxiety, panic attacks, and paranoia, and low self-esteem, and negative thoughts. And I remember I used to just think in my own head, privately, like I'm the most scaredest person that I know. I don't know anybody that's more frightened than me. Like, I'm a coward. Everybody can do normal things. I can't do them. I overthink. I'm scared of everything. I'm scared of what people think. I'm just scared of everything, like traveling, leaving the house. There were times where I was even just scared to be around my own family, friends, aunties, uncles, parties. Just scared, scared of my own shadow, scared to be on my own, scared to be around people, scared of money, scared of girls, scared of job interviews, scared to speak, scared to express myself, scared of people looking at me, just absolutely crippled with fear. Now, being at that point, the depression that I used to suffer was just agony. That's the best way I could describe it in human language. I just felt so lonely. I just felt like I was just so frightened of being in such a dark place where I just felt like no one's going to understand it. They're not going to understand me. They're not going to get it. And I couldn't even bring myself to talk about it. I was like, how can I speak about this? I'm embarrassed. I'm ashamed. I wouldn't feel like a man. I don't want other men or men and women laughing at me because I feel awful already. So I was so sensitive. If someone would have laughed and would have criticised me at that point, it would have literally broke me. I was absolutely broken from bullying, from just not believing in myself, from self-doubt, from allowing my mind to build up things. Most of the things didn't exist. It was my own paranoia, but my mind had built up so many stories that were negative about myself, and I just felt so depressed and so sad. So getting to that point, the positives were, despite feeling like that, I was always thankful that growing up, I had a good mum and dad, taught me many good values about working hard, and my dad installed a lot of courage in me and always tried to encourage me as a kid, to confront my fears and not be so afraid and so embarrassed. But it just took a little bit of time for me to apply, what my dad installed in me and what my mum installed in me. So I was fortunate to have that, because I know not everybody is as lucky as me, right? Some people don't have that growing up, and I'm very aware of that even at that time. So it took a long time, but for me, these were just personal demons that were important to me that I had to conquer, like to feel normal and valued. I had to go to the gym. I was scared to go and work out in the weightlifting gym. I just felt like if I walk in the gym, everybody's going to look at me and they're going to know that I've got all these demons, I've got all these issues, and I don't want them knowing these things about me. That was kind of like my own protection, like my own sort of way of keeping safe and not being hurt by other people is I got to hide this stuff from people. So eventually I did find the courage, being a good friend of mine who was passionate about the gym. We started working out together and doing weights. We were both big fans of Bruce Lee. I loved Bruce Lee growing up, Schwarzenegger, Van Damme, all the 80s films, The Karate Kid. So we worked out, and one thing I would say about myself, even though I didn't really like myself in my 20s, I was very dedicated. Once I put my mind to something, I was obsessed with it. Nothing could stop me. So I did gain some confidence actually from going to the weightlifting gym, but it still felt like it's not enough. There were still more demons that I had to face and slay because of this anxiety disorder that I had. So the next thing for me was, growing up watching boxing with my dad, always watching Mike Tyson, Nigel Benn, Lennox Lewis, some of the old fighters, a lot of Rocky Marciano, the guys in the 30s and the 40s, Jack Dempsey. My dad's a big boxing fan, so watching boxing with my dad made me love boxing. And, eventually at some point when I used to get bullied, I'm not saying this to be big-headed, I'm not a tough guy, and I really don't want to be, especially at my age. But back then, I was getting bullied badly, so I started using self-defense. My dad taught me the basics of boxing, and I like boxing. And you imitate, growing up watching boxing. So I started to fight bullies back, and instead of getting, the crap kicked out of me all the time. I started to hit bullies back that hit me, and then they stopped. So boxing did save my life in a lot of situations. It did teach me discipline. So I knew I had to go down the boxing gym, and I wanted to give boxing a go. And I always felt like most normal people would just be able to walk into a boxing gym and speak, and they might have some fear of boxing, but I didn't feel normal, because it was like, I am so embarrassed, I am so ashamed to walk in the boxing gym and speak to them. The shame that I was carrying was just such a heavy burden. But luckily, when I was training down the weightlifting gym, there was a guy that was older than me, and I didn't know that he was famous, and I didn't know that he was a former professional boxer and a journalist for boxing. And I got speaking with him, and he was a lovely guy, and he saw a bit of talent in me, and he said to me, well, why don't you come down to my old local amateur boxing gym, Fitzroy Lodge in South London? And I said, I felt over there. I was so happy, that he invited me. So he took me down, we went on the train. I got to know him a bit. He used to do a bit of light sparring with me, a lovely guy. And he introduced me to the gym. But I had to go back the next day on my own, and I remember my legs were shaking. I remember I couldn't eat on the day the night before. Like, I was sweating with social fear walking in the gym. I was just afraid that they're going to think I was weak. They were going to laugh at me. Obviously they didn't. They were lovely to me. They're strong people, but good people. So managed to get through the door, and I started boxing at Fitzroy Lodge, just doing the training. And I can't believe how much of a scared lamb I was, but how much confidence it gave me, how much I improved from being around these lovely people, these strong men, good people. And I eventually started boxing, doing some amateur boxing, sparring, and they got me in shape. I had an amateur fight a bit later on. I went to another club, and this was me conquering this terrible fear that I had. So doing weightlifting with my friend, then going to the boxing gym, doing amateur boxing in my 20s, those two things gave me more confidence. And then the next thing for me was, now it was like my terrifying fear, which was women, which was, all my issues come back from childhood, being laughed at school and rejected. You know what it's like going, my school was a mixed school, and I wasn't one of the most popular kids in school, although some girls did like me. Looking back now, I realised that, but back then I just saw negative. So I was very awkward and nervous around girls, and I always felt unattractive and ugly. So, when I gained some confidence in the boxing, and I started making new friends, I was a little bit more confident around women. I still had big issues, and then eventually, I got the confidence to speak to women, ask a woman out, go on a date. And my first date, I was like sick with anxiety. I couldn't even look her in the eye. I couldn't get my words out. I kept getting blocked emotionally. This would always happen to me as a kid. I wouldn't say that I stuttered. I definitely did stutter a little bit, but I just couldn't get words out. I should just freeze up and go red and quiet and look like that, like a nervous lamb. But obviously, the girl that went on a date when I was about 23, she was nice and understanding. We dated for a bit until she dumped me, because I couldn't really have a relationship. I was too scared. But that gave me some confidence going forward. So it was like the weightlifting gym, the boxing gym, girls, and eventually, through trial and error, through failing and continuing, I eventually did get a girlfriend. And then I went on, and this is a long, long story. I can get it all out in one video. That's making me knackered. I'm going dizzy telling my story. So, throughout those years, it was just a gradual process of facing these social fears, getting nervous, getting awkward, facing them again, getting a little bit more confident. Eventually, I climbed all the way up from not being able to leave the house to going to a weightlifting gym, being confident, doing boxing for several years, sparring, having an amateur fight, which I did lose. I got beat, but I'm not ashamed of it, because I tried. I gave it my best, and it wasn't good enough at the time. But I still tried, and I got beat, and I got a lot out of it. So, achieving all these things was massive for me. Like, just being able to go to a boxing gym and spar and have a fight, I never thought I could do it. I was how scared I was. So eventually I didn't realise, actually, contradictory to how I felt at the time, which was a complete coward and a loser and a failure, I didn't realise how much courage that I did have deep down, until I started to exercise my courage and work at things and get past. It wasn't easy, those demons and those fears and voices that I would always hear in my head, the voices of the bullies at school and the people that put me down and laughed at me, and then my own anger and resentment towards myself. Hearing that conversation wasn't nice, but I started to get past it. Then I started to have more of a positive feeling. I wouldn't say positive thoughts, I'd say more of my instincts, my intuition started to talk nicely to me, and I started to feel good about myself. And when you feel good about yourself and you've got that feel good factor, it gives you more strength to then be a little bit more daring and push outside of your comfort zone. So then I went on to do public speaking. I quit my office job that I didn't enjoy in my 20s. I set up my own business and I started coaching other men. And that was really scary for me and daunting, you know, because I had to get past all those voices that would say, well, how can you, who are you to teach other people? You know, you are not good enough, you don't have enough value, all these things, but I didn't believe it. Carried on doing it, and teaching is my passion, and I got very good at it. And I started to believe in myself, and then I turned it into a career. I never planned for it to be a business at the start. I wasn't business minded, never read a business book, didn't go to business school. I don't come from a family, maybe in my ancestors, but my immediate family of entrepreneurs or business people. But you know, the values and the ethics that my mum and dad taught me of seeing them work hard and provide for me, a big part of that is help me in my business and being honest and working at myself and boxing. All these things I put together, I learn from people. I learn from real life experience more than I do from books. So boxing, weight training, my mum, my dad, seeing how hard they work, life, bullies, some nice teachers at school, some nice friends growing up, because I did have a lot of good, nice friends as well. So I look at things in that way, and I instinctively, intuitively pick things up, learn, mimic, and then obviously become myself, make it my own, and learn from Bruce Lee. So I learn from everyone. Anyone who's got something of importance to say, or some truth or confidence or experiences, I learned and grew from. So public speaking was terrifying for me. I started to do that. I think I started to speak in front of 2 people, 4, 5, eventually 40, 50. Just went from strength to strength. So, you know, over the 20 years, and then obviously recently, I faced my fear of traveling. You know, the first time I've ever got on a plane on my own, I went to Germany twice. That was a huge accomplishment for me as a childhood, terrifying fear of mine to travel on my own. And it's been life-changing. And then before that, I overcome my fear of going Poland and Prague and Germany before with friends. So I traveled with friends and had a great time. So all these fears that I had as a youngster, I overcome them and faced them over the course of 20 years. And that's continued from even little fears I've had, and even the fear of sharing my story now, talking about my mental health challenges, even talking about my success. I was nervous to do that, and going on podcast shows, and then, you know, facing my fear of moving out, paying bills, all these little fears that I've had, because I've been a very fearful person, as you can probably tell, but I've gained confidence, I've gained courage, and I've been able to teach and continue to improve and work at these fears through the course of facing them. And I failed a lot, but I never quit, and I've succeeded a lot. So yeah, I was just thinking about that in the gym today. I can't believe you know, how quick time's gone, and what I've achieved, and what I've gone through. And you know, a lot of people might be disappointed to hear this, or they might be inspired, but despite facing all those fears and gaining all this confidence and helping so many people, I still battle with anxiety and mental health, and I still have fears as well, but I deal with it a lot better, and I still live my dreams, and I refuse to let any label or any person or any thought or voice define me and stop me and make me scared. I keep moving forward, and that's what gives me confidence and satisfaction, and that's what gives me the goal and the will to want to do this for as long as I can. So take what you want from my story, and I know it's relatable because this is something that I never planned, but people travel from all around the world to come and do my paid coaching, and for me to help them and to hear my story, and because they really connect with it. People appreciate, and I appreciate people that appreciate my honesty, you know, my strength, my vulnerability, my insecurities, my strengths, my confidence, and the real experiences that I've experienced and the people that I've learned from. And I would say, looking back now, what held me back for so many years was myself. And it almost feels weird saying that now, because in my own mind I used to always feel that it's other people that are stopping me, that they don't want me to succeed. They take pride and pleasure in seeing me suffer. There might be some truth in it, but they were never stopping me. it almost feels like a phantom illusion. There was a force stopping me, but really it was, you could say, a force of fear, but it was my own self-doubt. And that's true to this day. So that will be true for all of you. We feel in our own emotions, our own thoughts that it's other people. Because maybe when we were younger, when I was younger and we were vulnerable, there were bullies that stopped me and threatened me and said, if you do that, there'll be consequences. I'm gonna hit you, rob you, whatever they're gonna do, shout at you, beat you up. But as you get older, there's no one doing that, and if someone was doing that, then obviously you've got to report it and learn self-defense or tell someone. And in most cases, it's up here. It was in my own head. It was my own paranoia. So when you challenge the paranoia, when I challenge my paranoia and all my thoughts, as true as they feel, when you think about them and you feel the emotions and you're worrying about them, they're not true. 99.9% of all my fears in my head were not true. When I went out and I challenged them to see if they were true and they were real, they weren't real. And that becomes another fear, because then it's like, oh wow, I've got no excuses now. Now I can be successful. So yeah, I was terrified of being this person, of making money, helping people, being more honest, being vulnerable, traveling, living a successful life, building a business and a brand. I was frightened of all of it. So that's why I did it. I did it not despite fear, not despite anxiety, but because of these things and wanting to prove to myself that it's possible. And then obviously being able to be a positive example to other people, young men. I know that men and women have benefited from my story, my work, and that makes me feel happy. And it makes all of the sacrifice, the pain, all of the challenges that I've had to go through and continue to go through, it makes it worth it. There's no better feeling than being able to change someone else's life. I've realized that. There's no amount of money, although I enjoy making money, once you make it, it doesn't make you happy. It doesn't make you happy in the way that helping other people does, how that makes you feel. You can't put a price on that. So that's my story so far within the last 20 years. Well, it's a lot of it. It's hard to share all my story in one video. I want to be here for I need 3 hours. I do believe that when I do start getting invited again on podcast shows, I can tell my story in more detail, but that is a big chunk of it throughout the 20 years and how I've done it and how you can definitely do the same, all right? I appreciate you listening.